Welcome to the Huntsman's Journal podcast, a hunting story radio show. And now, your host, Adam Huntsman.
Welcome to the Huntsman's Journal podcast, a hunting story radio show. I'm your host, Adam Huntsman, and this is episode number 15, Garrett Roe and the hunt for our Rio turkey in Kansas. Okay, welcome to the Huntsman's Journal podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Adam Huntsman, and this is episode 15, Garrett Roe and his hunt for a Kansas Rio turkey. And I am super excited to have Garrett on the podcast today. He's actually the owner of the Heads Up Decoy Company, and last year he was able to go out and harvest a really nice spring Rio tom in his home state of Kansas. So really excited to kind of get him on the show and kind of hear that story. Don't have any Rios around here, but we do have a ton of Easterns, and every time I pull out of my driveway, it seems like I see a big tom strutting around somewhere. So really excited to talk turkey and kind of scratch that itch, as my season actually isn't going to be opening up for another couple weeks. So again, super excited to talk to Garrett. Also, super excited, we're going to be having a product giveaway at the end of the episode, so definitely stick around through the ending of the show so you can figure out how you can get entered into the drawing to win some cool decoys. And other than that, not too much going on my end yet. That's a lie, actually. That is such a lie. This year was actually the first year where I put in for some preference points in Colorado, so looks like I will be doing some Western hunting in my near future. Obviously, none of the points won't be more than likely won't be very useful this year, but in the coming years, it'll definitely be very beneficial. So really excited to kind of just start playing that whole game. And who knows? Hopefully, maybe even kind of go out and do some over-the-counter stuff this fall, just to kind of get some hunting in until I can start drawing those better units. So, again, super excited for that. Just super excited in general nowadays. A lot of cool stuff come down. A lot of cool episodes coming down the pipe for you guys as we kind of get more into turkey season and beyond. We'll probably be doing a lot of cool. We'll probably be doing a lot of bear hunting episodes, so definitely stick around for that. We've got a lot of cool stuff coming down as far as that's concerned. I'm talking, black bear hunting, grizzly bear hunting, how to do it yourself hunts in Canada, all sorts of fun stuff. So definitely stick around for that. But before we get into any of that, let's talk to Garrett and see how he was able to harvest a nice Rio turkey last year in Kansas. Okay, and on the phone with us today is Garrett Roe from the Heads Up Decoy Company. How you doing today, Garrett?
I'm good, Adam. I appreciate you having me on, and excited to be here and talk to you about some hunting.
Hey, that makes two of us, man. I'm itching to get out and do some turkey hunting. Season doesn't open up for me. I think for like another couple weeks. So everyone's posting up all these pictures, and all the turkeys are flopping, and I'm just sitting here just chomping at the bit. So this is kind of my way of scratching the itch until the season starts. So I'm
there you go. Sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah, very glad to have you on. So yeah, welcome to the show.
You bet. Yeah. No problem.
Yeah. So now, obviously, I'm kind of jacked up about turkeys. So I figured we'd go ahead and have you on and have you share some turkey hunting stories with us. But before we do that, like we usually do, we usually let our guests kind of come on and introduce themselves to the listeners. So before we get into the story, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about yourself, Garrett?
Sure. My name's Garrett Roe. I am a passionate bow hunter. Since I've been bow hunting for over 30 years, and I've bow hunted whitetails primarily. We do have a few mule deer that I can chase. For the last 10 years, 15 years or so, I've elk hunted, done a little bit of antelope hunting, and so anything I can chase with a bow that's in driving distance, is something that's what I love to do. And I developed a mobile, decoy that's partial body for archery hunting industry. And through that, I've been doing that since 2008. Well, that's when we first kind of hit the market. It's the first time I had killed a deer with one of my products was 2008. And so we've been around quite a while. We've checked a lot of stuff off the list. We've learned a lot about, our product and bow hunting in general. And I've met some really awesome people, in this, this small community of bow hunters.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I can definitely relate to that. Meaning, like we were just talking before we started recording, it's definitely an awesome community, and just kind of going through and just with me doing this podcast, it really is an awesome community with a lot of great people in it. So the more we can all kind of come together and talk, especially talk about hunting, hey, it's a good thing.
You bet.
But,
you can learn a lot from other people if you have, if you can listen and share or relate to their stories or take a little, some experience from them, and apply it to however, maybe a situation for yourself.
Yep, absolutely. And I'm hoping that not only will I be able to kind of do that today, because first of all, I can use all the help I can get. But then second of all, hopefully we'll be able to get some, get some stories in there as well. So hopefully we'll be able to kind of kill two birds with one stone.
Exactly.
No pun intended, but
exactly.
Anyway, very cool, Garrett. So again, we're going to be talking about turkey hunting today, and your story took place in Kansas. Is that right?
Yeah, I live in West Central Kansas. That's something I probably did not, the information I didn't probably say in my, in my brief introduction. But yeah, I live in West Central Kansas. We're kind of blessed with maybe a mixed bag of turkeys. We don't have Merriams, but we have Rios and Easterns and hybrids.
Really? Oh, that's interesting.
And the farther west you get of haze, the more it becomes the Rios. But you'll get, I think some hybrids. And then when you kind of, you'll get a mixed bag around haze here. And then once you go east, obviously you start kind of getting into the Rios. But the Easterns, but every once in a while you'll see some white-tipped birds, east of haze, and so it's kind of it. We have a mixed bag here for sure.
Nice, that's very exciting.
So it's kind of fun. I mean, if we have a two bird limit here, and so obviously, everybody generally buys two tags, and you're hopeful to get two of them. But if you want to shoot a Rio, you don't have to travel too far to maybe have a chance at one. So
that's awesome. And now, as far as the two tags are concerned, is that a situation where you've got one tag for each subspecies, or is it just two turkey tags? Do with them what you will.
Two male turkeys. Two bearded turkeys.
Two bearded turkeys. So, awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
And the one you got that we're talking about here today, which one was that?
That was a Rio. I shot a Rio last year.
Okay, and that's what I was 98% sure that it was a Rio, but I didn't want to say I didn't want to mix it up just in case.
Yeah, they're a little bit smaller bird. They got some. Sometimes they can be fairly white tipped, but other times they can be just a touch of chestnut in there, and then maybe that could be that hybrid. And I am not an expert, but I just heard other people talk that there's a lot of hybrids around. Are there pure Rios? Are there pure Easterns? Probably. Is there a mixed bag of both? Yes, definitely. And the Rios are typically a little smaller birds. Gotcha.
So then, as far as whenever you're out hunting, so say you take me, an Easterner. I only have experience with Eastern turkeys. As far as, distinguishing the two, like you said, they've each got their own distinctive, kind of bearings. But as far as the hybrids are concerned, how do you, how would you go about, breaking that down? Does that kind of get kind of confusing?
They're not, they just have a lighter tips.
Gotcha.
They're not real light, but they're not like dark like your Easterns are. They're kind of somewhere in between.
Okay, so just kind of going off that tail feather then, just kind of...
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yep. Their wingtips, not their wingtips, but their feathers, their tips are just, somewhere in between the really dark chestnut color and then the lighter Rio. So, but yeah, we typically hunt Rios, and like last year, for me, I basically run heads-up decoy by myself, and so we've been, we keep up as best we can with demand, and we grow every year, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes that's bad in some aspects as well. You have to, sacrifice a lot of your time to kind of keep up.
Yeah.
And so last year,
I was gonna.
our turkeys.
Sorry, not to interrupt you, Garrett. It's funny. It's kind of like that sick joke where like everybody wants to get into the hunting industry until they do, and then they realize, oh, wait a minute, this means I actually, a lot of my busy season is during hunting season when you want to be working, and then it's like, oh man, what did I do?
We could have a whole podcast about that.
Oh.
I could really tell you the reality of it. And you know this too, because you've lived it as well. It's not what it's made out to be in some regards. It's great. It's fun to be in it, but it can be. It's not an easy industry, especially when you try to start doing things more professionally.
Yeah, it's kind of like the whole concept. What was it? All magic comes with a price, kind of thing. Like, it's not always what it's cracked up to be, but
right.
But
yes.
Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so I was really busy last spring, just like this spring, and my son, he thought he wanted to hunt. He was 8 last year, and he thought he wanted to go out and hunt. So I drug him around for the youth season a couple of days, and we found out that he just was not quite ready, literally, to pull the trigger on a bird. It's hard for him to kind of get around and bit touch scared, kind of, to shoot the gun at a bird, and so, which was fine with me. I had no problem with that, but. He was dead set on doing it until he found out that, I don't know if I'm quite ready for this. And so he kind of had to fail a little bit before he decided that, I'm going to wait a little bit. And we kind of came to that conclusion together that, hey, let's wait another year. Let's not get in a big hurry. Let's enjoy this. And, and you come around, you can come with me and when you can and just watch Dad. But, as we got busier with the product and manufacturing and trying to keep up with some of the demand, for the summer and preparing for the summer, which is our busy time, I wasn't able to get out very much. And I am, by and large, Adam, a weekend hunter. I'm not, I don't get to pick the best days to hunt. Just because I have, this product, I can't just say, and I own my own business. I don't get up out of bed and not clock in. Basically, I have responsibilities and duties.
Yep.
And then the days that I get to hunt are the days that I'm stuck with. And sometimes it's really, really bad. And as far as weather conditions and hunting conditions. And other days, I hit the jackpot. I get a really good day. And so Mother Nature's always always the wild card when you get time to go hunt. And I had a day last year where I had kind of some opportunities here and there. Periodically, I'd be able to get out in an afternoon here or there, but nothing really to charge. No real charges, turkey charges, no real good shot opportunities. And I hunt turkeys strictly with a bow. So I really didn't have, it was kind of a little bit of a struggle, and I don't have exclusive rights to hunt any piece of property that I hunt on. And so there's other people out there, fiddling around with birds. And so there's a little bit of pressure.
Yep.
So you really have to catch them in the right frame of mind. And so it just so happened to be that one afternoon I was able to get out of town and get out in the country and try to, fill a tag and basically, that's exactly what I did. It was kind of warm. Weather was pretty good, a little breezy, and I was driving to one of my spots, and I saw 2 toms underneath a tree, shading themselves in the shade, just kind of hanging out. And it was a fairly nice day, so I was like, okay, they're not going to be stuck under this tree because it's too hot. They'll probably come out and play because they weren't on the property that I was on, that I could hunt on.
Gotcha.
So I literally had to, Yeah, they were a ways away. So
gotcha. And I was going to say, just to kind of step back real quick, Garrett. As far as the timing of or I guess the part of the season that this day was falling on, was this kind of still towards the earlier part of the season, or was it kind of middle end?
In the middle. It was like that first week of May, I believe. Usually, I like to be done before then.
Gotcha. Yep. So. And then they're under the tree now. What roughly what time in the day was that?
It was about 4 in the afternoon.
Oh, in the afternoon.
Yeah,
okay.
4 in the afternoon. So yeah, it was in the afternoon and kind of that midday. And they do like to shade and kind of hang out. That in the middle of the day, especially when the sun's beating down on them. And so I was able to hide the truck, actually, kind of between me and them, but off to the side a little bit. There was a big bank along the road, and I could hide my truck. And I was hoping that if I did call them up, I was actually parked the truck closer to them than where I sat up. Just to try to call them to me.
Gotcha.
And so I snuck. I was able to tuck my truck up against this bank, hoping that it was below this plowed field that they would have to cross. Now my odds weren't that really very good in my mind. I mean, I had to call them across a quarter-mile plowed field, under two fences, under a fence, across the road, under a fence, onto the piece of ground that I could hunt. But that was my only option. So, and I have a friend of mine that when we go out hunting, it's like, screw it, it just might work. It's kind of our philosophy. And when you take that philosophy and you take an opportunity, a lot of times you'll be surprised what you can pull off.
Sure.
No matter how bleak certain, scenarios look. And that's exactly what I did. I parked the truck, got out to where I thought they would be willing to cross the fence and the road, and then I stuck the decoy actually in the ground. A lot of times I'll put it in the bow, but I put it in the ground this time and I hid behind it, and so I was able to call. I called as loud as I could, and just kept my eye open, and eventually I saw a couple dots on the plowed field at the edge, so I knew that they had heard me and they were interested. And then that's when I used the decoy to kind of provide some movement. The beauty about the product that I use and I've developed is that you can move it with your hand, and you can simulate a turkey strutting or coming in and out of full strut. And they were a long ways away, so that's what I did. So I enticed them, and I hand called them, but I used the turkey decoy as a full strut decoy with a real turkey fan in it. And I just would move it around and then simulate going in and out of strut, and then that's all it really took. And then I just coaxed them all the way across that field.
Gotcha. And so again, right at this point, you got their attention. They're coming into the decoy. As far as the vocalizations you were going with, would you mind talking about a little bit about that?
Just basic hen calls.
Just basic. Yelp. Okay. No, so nothing fancy.
I think I may have, just to really get them, just to see if I could get them to do something. I think I may have done some I may have cut a little bit right away, because they were a long ways away.
Yep.
And so I just, like I said, I just went through a series of yelps and maybe a couple of cuts, and that was basically it. Once I got their attention, then I drew them in with some a few yelps, a few hen calls, and then. Like I said, I just would move the decoy around and pretend like I was going in and out of strut. And once I knew that they were on their way, they kind of picked up speed, and so I went ahead and put the decoy back in the ground stake, and then I just played peekaboo with them as and just essentially worked them across the plowed field.
Gotcha. Okay, and very cool.
Yeah, so that was really how it went down, and the closer they got, it was harder to see them. And I was literally, I think, Adam, I was probably 5 yards from the fence. And then the road was right adjacent to the fence. And I could see them just barely. And they came up. They were, I have video of it, and I didn't realize I did until the other day when I checked, that I have video of this bird just like coming right up to me. I mean, he was like point blank range, but I couldn't shoot him because he was still in the road.
Right, gotcha.
And so I went ahead and drew because he was coming, and then in the meantime, he had two. There were two of them. There was another one on the other side of the road trying to figure out where best to cross his fence, and he was getting real anxious because the other bird was kind of ahead of him. And if you've ever hunted turkeys and you get two toms at the same time, and one of them starts running, then the other one starts running, then pretty soon they just are stumbling over each other to beat that other guy to wherever they want to go.
Yep.
And that's essentially kind of what was kind of going on. And then, so I had drawn my bow, and they angled off to my right, and they crossed the fence. I saw them duck down, and I saw a beard on one of them. I'm not a trophy hunter, and I don't know if you can trophy hunt turkeys. Maybe you can. I don't know. I just see it. A turkey. I'll shoot jakes.
Yeah. It's kind of funny you mentioned that because I mean, kind of just going into the turkey season. I was trying to find like some like really unique slash how do I want to say very just like unique, memorable like turkey hunting stories where like maybe somebody had like a history with a turkey, like kind of like almost like a deer, and it's I came across one story. It was a short story written by Charles Eliot, and he had actually had like a multi-year history with this one particular turkey. So I was trying to find something like that, and it's really not something that's easy to find. And then I'm kind of to your point, it's kind of even like one step further. I'm the same way. Whereas to me, like I'm just excited to get a turkey into range. So I mean, if it was an exciting hunt or whatever, I'm completely cool with taking a jake. You know what I'm talking about. I'm just mumbling now, but you understand.
You can tell kind of later on in the year when you've got 2-year-old birds, like a bachelor group of 2-year-olds and then some older dominant birds, but in the beginning of the year, it seems like they all think that they're dominant, and they're rushing in, but kind of towards that middle part and late part, they start separating and banding together, I mean, I can remember a few years ago, I had 4 toms. They had to have been 2-year-olds, and we had decoyed them in, fanned them in with the decoy one time to point blank range. Of course, I missed, and that was it. They were together, and I'd seen them, many other times throughout the season, but they never would come back in. They would hang together. They would not leave each other. But then a dominant bird, you could get them to come in. It was just kind of an interesting. That was several years ago, but these birds, these two came in, and I just saw a beard on one of them.
Yep.
And I was at full draw, and I was just kind of waiting for him to clear, and obviously he did, and I thumped him pretty good. And I use like some big expandable broadheads, and I body shoot them. I don't, the head choppers are great. Broadheads for turkeys, but I just have not been able to crawl around well with them and move around. I think if you're blind hunting, they're really exceptional. But I use some real big expandables to shoot these birds and all my turkeys actually body shoot them, and it usually puts them down pretty good. So
awesome. And
what's funny is I was like, that thing cleared, and I shot him and plunked him. And then when I was looking at the footage the other day, I realized that, my arrow had actually hit a yucca plant in front of me.
Oh, really?
But it held its line and hit him right where I wanted to hit him. So
great. No, congratulations, man. That's I've seen pictures of the turkey, and he's just a beautiful bird.
You bet, man. I enjoy hunting them. I think, when we talk about like just what we did talk about is like, we'll shoot a jake. That's the beauty about turkey hunting, in my opinion, is there's really no pressure to shoot a giant 170 or something like that. I mean, it's a turkey, and it's hard to, I've yet to shoot one with multiple beards, which would be awesome. But I think the fun part about it is the turkey, by and large, is a turkey. And every once in a while, when you walk up on something, you get a surprise with maybe some really long spurs, or maybe a bigger beard than what you thought, or maybe two or three beards on one. So
yep, yeah, and I'm not sure if it's because, and I mean, to your point, like, no matter what, I just enjoy hunting turkeys. Just because if I can get them to come in and get that interaction going back and forth, that's just fun and exciting, especially when you get them, like you so often do it. It's such a close range. I just don't know if it's because it's harder to determine, individual turkeys, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm thinking back and.
Yeah.
I can only ever remember one time where there was. I remember this was. I think it was like the 2014 into the 2015 season. I think, and it was one of those deals where all throughout deer season, I would see this big old tom, and he had a gimp. I don't know if something had attacked him, or if somebody had taken a shot at him or what. But he had a bad left leg. And so he was always the last in the flock. He would gimp around, and I saw this. I kid you not, I saw this turkey for months, and I even tried hunting him a couple times, and I could never get it to actually come together with him. And I think honestly because he he couldn't move all that well, so it kind of hindered the ability to come, to get him to come in, and wound up never actually being able to take him. Never actually, I'm not sure what wound up happening with him, but I mean, other than that, yeah, it's you don't hear too much about people or trophy hunting turkeys or hunting individual birds, but it's always fun no matter what.
It is. They're really neat. They're great to have around to hunt during the spring, kind of tie you over, before the summer hits. For sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And like, so you kind of get that interaction with them, and it's like kind of like how people kind of compare it to elk hunting, where you can call and get a response, and you can definitely you can kind of see the similarities. But then again, I guess you kind of can't too. So
yeah,
now,
there's some. If you really wanted to try to make the effort to make some similarities, there are some parallels for sure. But it is fun to hunt them. I mean, you can run and gun them, and you can you can hand call them and get a reaction gobble, and I just it is a fun. Turkey hunting is just it's so enjoyable, and really, honestly, I think another thing is it can be done fairly economically.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You don't have to invest a ton of money to have a good time turkey hunting and to have success.
Yep, absolutely, and kind of just especially with your situation where you've got several different kinds of birds to go after. There's I mean there's so many of the different species or I guess subspecies available to hunt. It's a lot of there's a lot of opportunity to have a lot of fun, and to your point, not really break the bank while you're doing it. So, it's definitely exciting. So now again, kind of jumping back into the story here, Garrett. Like you said, you were able to kind of get them to come in, with the decoy, and obviously you own the decoy company. So I think it would be fair for me to assume that you do a good bit of, decoy hunting. Would you mind speaking? Just to that. In other words, in all of your experience hunting with decoys, what would you? How do I want to say this? I guess what I'm asking for is just like some different tips or tactics or things that you found that have helped you to be successful that maybe somebody listening could be able to kind of take away from it and maybe apply to their spring turkey season this year.
Sure. Okay. So. If you talk specifically about, what our product can offer, we pride ourselves in making, and I say we, I just divulge that it's basically me. And so, for Heads Up Decoy is concerned, I try to make a product that's realistic but versatile. So there's not one way to skin a cat, and there's not one way to use our product. Mm-hmm. I think, we were basically laughed at. And still, to this day, people ask us if this thing actually works. And I want to just say, well, yeah, I just, basically wrecked, all of my free time, put this huge burden on my family just so I could pull a practical joke on you.
Right.
Yes, they work, but they're versatile. There's no one way to use them. They are truly a handheld decoy by design. So it's difficult for people to understand or conceptualize how can you make a handheld big game or turkey decoy. Well, but they're more than that. They're for mobile hunting. You can use our turkey decoy because it comes with a ground stake. They're also bow mountable, and we have a bow mount bracket that can mount to the end of a stabilizer or between the stabilizer and your riser of your bow. And so they're a lot of different ways. So when you think about this, you can stake it to the ground to hunt your traditional setups. You stick the decoy out with a hen, and then because it's a tom turkey decoy only, and we only make the center part of it. You provide the cloth component, the tail feather. So you put the real turkey fan in there. It slides right in, and we provide the image of a circled disc of a strutting tom, and it's designed to be very lightweight and mobile. And you can fan. I mean, there's people that call them, that refer to it as turkey reaping, and I just call it killing stuff. And so our product, you can hold it. If you want to run and gun, it's basically a run and gun decoy for the most part.
Okay.
Run and bow, however you want to consider it. And you can use the decoy in just 100 different ways, really. And one of the ways is to fan them in. Pretend like you're a tom. You move in on them. Maybe you see a tom with a couple of hens, or maybe just a couple of toms just cruising around in a hayfield. And you use terrain and other obstacles to kind of get in the way of them, or in an area where you can see them, and then come out and present the decoy and pretend like you're strutting tom turkey, coming in and out of strut, provide a little movement. And once that happens, depending on their frame of mind, things can happen really fast. You're looking for a charge, and you want them to come, charging right in. And that's the ultimate, and that's where it gets very nerve-wracking, and you want to be ready for that. So you never really want to show the decoy, and that goes with any of them. You don't ever want to show the decoy, kind of like calling and showing a decoy. You don't want to do that until you're ready. Yep. You need to be prepared to be ready for a shot or for something to happen. And so I usually have an arrow knocked before I show the decoy.
Yep.
Because they can cruise 300 yards and in seconds and be on top of you. And if you're not arrow knocked and ready, your opportunity's over. And so that's kind of what heads up decoy in the nutshell kind of offers. A very versatile decoy that is very user dependent. Your ability to use it and present the product in a realistic way will increase your odds of having some really cool reactions. And some of them are purely unique to heads up decoy. I mean, some of the things that we do with our whitetail decoy I would consider to be unique to our product only. And we've been doing some stuff with our whitetail buck decoy since 2010 that have been it's something everyone should experience. So, but the turkey decoy is kind of one of those things. Generally speaking, you have it's a target-rich environment. There's a lot of turkeys throughout the U.S. And the idea is to if they don't come in on a traditional roost hunt, or maybe you only had a few hours to hunt in the day, you can take our product out, find a bird, and fan them in. And you could either stick it in the ground, or you can hold it for somebody. I mean, there are times, the reason why we make handheld decoys is because, as I said earlier, I'm relegated to the days that I have, and Mother Nature could be blowing 20 miles an hour or 30, but this is the day I get to hunt.
Yep. No, and I feel like I feel like a lot of people can definitely relate to that. I'm in the same boat. I mean, I feel like the vast majority of us, we know when the best days to hunt are, but it's kind of one of those deals where, well, that's nice, but you can really only you can't necessarily hunt all the days, so you can just gotta hunt whenever you can.
And you can't hunt from your couch.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. No matter what, even if you go out on one of the worst days, it's still, at least you're still getting out. So,
you bet. Yeah, and that's kind of that's the thing. Is like you can hold our decoy. I mean, our heads up decoy, our turkey decoy, and our mule deer doe decoy, our whitetail buck decoy. I don't know how many animals have been shot with somebody holding the decoy and the shooter right behind in their hip pocket. In the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the wide open.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's a component that we really pride ourselves on, is we have a product that if it's really bad conditions, if you've got a partner, you can still have some success.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Especially like you say, if you're hunting with a partner, and since it's one dimensional and very easily transportable, you can definitely see how that would come in handy in those types of situations.
They're easy to handle.
Yeah, no, they definitely look like it. And now as far as again, we talked a good bit here about hunting them with the decoy attached to your bow, or like I said, either you using it, or fanning them in, or having a hunting partner use it. As far as actually setting them up, and you said that you could use them, kind of traditional style.
Yeah.
Now, whenever you go to do that, since they are one-dimensional, I mean, have you come across any tips, or have you come across anything that you would usually keep in mind whenever you're setting it up, since it is one-dimensional? Or is it literally, I think the birds are going to come from this direction, and you're going to set up accordingly?
Yes. So I try to put the face, I try to set it up fairly close to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I try to face it to where I think they're going to come.
Gotcha.
But obviously the birds are going to kind of have their own route.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, really, so I'm not going to sit there and tell you that the decoy is really a transporter of the turkey fan. The turkey fan, the real tail feathers are the real deal. That's really what makes it. You can't replicate Mother Nature.
Yeah,
in that
we
regard.
Like to try. We
and
like
so
to try.
Having those feathers kind of bend and shine and kind of float, naturally, that definitely helps. That's what really helps. And then they see that image from, the shape, the profile of the fan from, a long ways away. You've convinced them probably 100 yards or more that you're a turkey. So even if they do spin and turn halfway, and maybe look at it from the side, they've already decided that you're a turkey. So they've almost kind of come to the conclusion that you're a turkey, and they don't really get, they kind of like to come into your face anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't spin too far around.
Yep, no, that makes
sense. So that's. I mean, there are way more realistic decoys out there than what mine is, for sure. But if you want something that's versatile, then ours is the product to have. There's really, like I said, there's no one way to use it. In fact, sometimes we create ways to use the thing.
Yep. No, that makes sense, and you never know what you're going to get into out there. So it's nice to be able to have something that can, And again, I haven't used your decoy, but just generally speaking, it's always better to have options. And especially if you've got something that's versatile. That's always a good position to be in. But very cool, Garrett.
and that's really kind of where we've got the corner of the market on that one for sure. So.
Yep. Awesome. Well, you definitely worked on that bird, so that's
no doubt. And then and like I said earlier, I convinced him I was a turkey when he was 300 yards out there. So
yeah, I was going to.
It's a matter of him just. Go ahead.
Sorry not to cut you off again, but yeah, and I mean, you called him in a pretty good way there. I meant to ask you whenever you were getting the story going, as far as the terrain is concerned, was this more like rolling hills? I mean, this is Kansas, so I mean, what?
We're not as flat as what you might think, Adam.
That's what I'm going back and forth in my head, right? I'm thinking, how flat is it really, or what was the topography really like? Because even with that said, it really depends on where you're hunting. So as far as this is concerned, what was it like where this hunt took place?
Well, so they were in a river bottom basically. And this particular piece of this river bottom was fairly open. I don't know why Mother Nature has this particular part of the river bottom with no cottonwood trees. I don't know if there's something in the soil that keeps them from growing. But this area was really open. But there were just one or two or three every several hundred yards cottonwood trees. Mm-hmm. And normally it's fairly dense. And so they were under this one, and then right adjacent to, people farm fairly close to the river bottom up to a point, because it'll flood. Mm-hmm. So there'll be a bank that kind of dips down, and they were in the bottom of that. And then they came up into basically a flat plowed field. So this plowed field was probably, I'd say this plowed field is 160 acres.
Oh, wow.
So it's a big plowed field.
Yeah.
But it was irregularly shaped. So it was probably several hundred yards from the river bottom where they were at to where I set up to so they wouldn't see my truck, but then high enough to if they did peek their heads out of the riverbank, and come up, they would see me.
Gotcha.
Is essentially, and once I saw the two dots, I mean, I had to use my binoculars.
They're a bit of a ways away.
I was actually seeing turkeys, and then I just picked up the decoy at that point, and then I just waved it in the air like a flag.
Gotcha.
Like a turkey on a stick, essentially.
Yep.
And then and I made sure that I had visual contact with them. I was looking at them. Mm-hmm. I would wave the decoy. Like I said, I would simulate as Tom strutting, swaying back and forth or coming in and out of strut. And then I'd set it down, and then I'd get my binos out, and I would look to make sure that I had their attention.
Gotcha.
And then by that time, they started kind of cruising over towards me, and I was like, okay, this might just happen.
Yep.
And sure enough. And from the time that I parked my truck to the time I shot that bird, it was about 15 minutes, maybe.
Whew. So you're coming in fast.
Yeah, it worked out really good.
Yeah.
So, Yep, I was happy. I was back before dark. So
that's always good.
Yeah, it makes your wife happy for sure.
Yeah, so, yeah. I'll have one of those here probably by next spring, or by next turkey season. Okay. So that'll be good.
Okay, there you go.
Hopefully I'll be able to get it done, before dark as well.
Okay.
Very, very cool, Garrett. Well, I tell you what, we're coming up on time here, Garrett, and again, thank you so much for coming on. Now, as far as this spring is concerned, I mean, we're kind of in the thick of things right now. How's this year been going for you?
Slowly. We talked about my son hunting, and we were able to get out for the youth season a little bit. And when you have a kid, folks, it's youth season all year. I mean, there's no special youth season. Yeah, there's a special youth season, but if you have a kid and you want to introduce them to the outdoors and hunting, take them as much as you can. And so the youth season started on April 3rd, and I could hunt. Well, I take that back. The youth season started 2 days before the archery season did. Mm-hmm. So they get 2 days just strictly youth, and then the youth can hunt with a shotgun all the way up until today, which was opening day of the shotgun season. Okay.
Oh, I see.
And so so the youth can shoot shotgun or whatever legal method they want to use, starting basically, April 1st-ish or so.
Mm-hmm.
But, I took my son out, I think the Monday, it was opening of archery season, but in the youth shotgun, and I took him out on an afternoon hunt, and we got right into him right away, and we were able to. He's 9, so he still struggles a little bit handling the gun and getting around, and then running and gunning with a young person is hard to do, but we managed, and we had an opportunity, and he shot once, and I never let him shoot a turkey load before because I did not want him to know what it felt like to shoot a turkey load through your shotgun, because if you miss, it lights you up. You know that.
Yep. Yeah, got a little more kick to it.
And so, and we were talking. He's going, and as these birds we were working these birds. He's going, "Dad, I'm not going to be scared to shoot this time." And I said, "Okay." And then after he shot, he missed, and he said, "Dad, that really kicked me good." And I said, "Yeah, I know." And I kind of laughed because I knew that it would, because he's only shot the light load, dove loads through a shotgun, and so anyway, I told him, I said, "You weren't really supposed to miss that one because that was a good opportunity, because then now you know what a turkey load feels like. So then the next time we go out and hunt, I'm going to have to tell him that I put a lighter load in for him." So.
Yeah, you gotta count on.
That was our only action. So it's been pretty slow since.
Gotcha. Well, how long does your season go for?
May 31st.
Okay, so still got plenty of time then to kind of get into
a lot of time. But it gets pretty weedy and overgrown and and kicky and hot and sweaty and disgusting and stuff towards the middle of May. It gets pretty soupy out there. Yeah.
It's unfortunate. I find myself in that position every year. Our season doesn't even start until, usually it's like sometime, and I can't even remember what it is this year. It's always within the first couple of days of May, and and that's only just starting. So it's really hard unless you get on that first opening weekend. It's like you said, it's always so hot, and it's kind of breeding season is kind of like winding down anyway. So it gets a little difficult, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah. Right.
It is.
Go out.
That's right. But very cool, Garrett. Well, again, I really want to thank you again so much for coming on the show and sharing your hunting story with us and kind of giving us a little bit of information about heads up, decoy, and how you can use them to anybody's advantage. Now, as far as I'm sure you're on social media and all that fun stuff. Where can we send everybody to follow along with you?
Well, you can go to our website, headsupdecoy.com. Or, we are on Facebook. Just search Heads Up Decoy and Instagram as well. Just search
Heads Up Decoy. You'll find us, and you can keep up with us. We have really recently tried to kind of rekindle our blog posts. So on our website, we have, which kind of led me to you on this. We have stories using Heads Up Decoy on our blogs, and maybe a few tips here and there. And so we've really we try to do a better job about talking about stories, real stories, not fabricated stories of or canned hunts or things that these are legitimate hunts, and they're from myself, pro staffers, and customers that are out there having success with our product. They're entertaining. We try to provide a good image of our product and some good pictures and entertaining stories, and so that's how you find us. That's how you find information about us and follow us.
Awesome. Well, and we'll definitely we'll definitely be sure to link to all that in the show notes so everybody can get over to that as easily as possible. And I think that's a perfect way to end it. Garrett, again, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really, really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Adam. Thanks for having me.
Okay, and that will do it for episode 15. Thank you all again, as always, for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, I would really, really also appreciate it if you would leave us a rating or review on iTunes, as it's going to be the best way to kind of help spread the word and kind of get our podcast out there. And as always, if you have a hunting story of your own that you'd like to share, definitely reach out to us and we'll get you on the show. Now, enough of that, the moment you've all been waiting for. If you guys would like to win a heads-up decoy, Garrett was very generous and Garrett was generous enough to offer up one of his decoys to a winner. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do a little giveaway here. And all that you'll have to do in order to be entered to win is to go ahead and leave the Huntsman's Journal podcast a rating and review on iTunes. After you go through and do that, I'll go ahead and get everyone's names together and draw a winner during next week's episode. And from there, Garrett will go ahead and get you guys sent out a heads-up turkey decoy. So pretty cool, as obviously it's spring season and the turkeys are popping across the country. So go ahead and get on that now, and we'll get that out to you before the end of the season, and hopefully it'll help your chances of taking out a big old tom this spring. Other than that, again, everybody, really from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for tuning in to the Huntsman's Journal podcast. I really do appreciate it, and I hope that your spring is as successful as Garrett's was last year. So, until next week, I'm your host, Adam Huntsman, and this is the Huntsman's Journal podcast.